Everyone, thanks for joining us on the news tonight. I am Nifemi Okuntoye. Former military head of state General Ibrahim Babangida says military forces led by Sani Abacha, who was as chief of defense staff and later became military head of state, annulled the June 12 election without his permission. But the former military president says he regretted the annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election. All these were contained in an autobiography titled A Journey in Service. TVC News State House correspondent Femi Akonde has more.
The long-anticipated memoir of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, a man who played a significant role in Nigeria's political history. His influence extends beyond the military circles to government, public and private sectors. His positive effect is evident in the assemblage of prominent Nigerians gathered in this hall to honor a man who stepped aside as head of state and president of Nigeria in August 1993, 32 years ago. Now, after 3 decades, General Babangida gives an account of his own side of history. The role he played on the center stage in critical events like the annulment of June 12, the death of Delegiwa, the Mamamvasta coup and the Gideon Oka coup. For the first time, the charismatic military general openly admits that Chief MKO Abiola won the annulled June 12, 1993 presidential election. He also accepted full responsibility for the events that led to the annulment of that election, adjudged to be the best ever conducted in Nigeria's history of democratic elections.
Free and fair elections were held on June 12, 1993. However, the tragic irony of history remains that the administration that devised a near-perfect electoral system and conducted those near-perfect elections could not complete the process. That accident of history is most regrettable. The nation is entitled to expect my impression of regret. As the leader of the military administration, I accept full responsibility for all decisions taken under my watch.
The special guest at the launch of General Ibrahim Babangida's autobiography is President Bola Tinubu, who was once a victim of several decisions taken by General Babangida's administration to truncate the democratic process. President Bola Tinubu recalled how he once challenged Ibrahim Babangida over his failure to inaugurate the National Assembly when President Tinubu was elected to represent Lagos West in 1992.
I confronted you, that you had an opportunity to make history that day, and you failed to do it. Why not inaugurate us? Why are you calling us back and postponing the inauguration day? They thought I will end up in jail. You came out right at the end of the remark. You shook me. I can't forget that picture. You said, you are courageous. That's an inspiration.
Now that General Ibrahim Babangida has decided to tell it all, some major characters in that episode of Nigeria's history, like Humphrey Nwosu, who was chairman of the National Electoral Commission, are not alive to also give an account of their roles in the annals of the country. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who was the chairman of the occasion, says General Babangida's autobiography is a contribution to documenting history.
You have not only contributed to history making, you have contributed to documenting history. It is an important part of our nation building to keep accurate record.
Almost everyone that encountered the man that was fondly called Maradona or evil genius still has an impression that has lasted for several decades. For General Yakubu Gowon, it is the decision of General Babangida to restore his military ranks after being falsely implicated in the 1976 Dimka coup that still sticks in his mind. Former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo reviewed the 420-page book that contains details of events preceding General Babangida's time as head of state and his role in coups that altered the course of Nigeria's political development.
His combat experience during the Civil War. His favorite commanders were General Wushishi and General Danjuma. The most unfortunate aspect of the war experience for him was that it brought him into combat confrontation with some officers from the Biafran side, with whom he had trained as a cadet, who now had to fight on the Biafran side. Interestingly, a good number of them who survived remained his friends after the war and long afterwards.
In the coming days, General Ibrahim Babangida's account of history will come under heavy scrutiny. Issues he raised in his book will be fact-checked, and many more questions will be asked, especially why he waited for more than 3 decades to set the record straight. The autobiography A Journey in Service is an attempt by General Ibrahim Babangida to reconcile events of the past with the present as the country takes steps into the future. The content of this book will also help unravel facts and give closure to some unsettled matters that shaped Nigeria's history. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Now let's bring in one of Chief MKO Abiola's sons, Abdulmumin Abiola, on the news at 10. Thanks for joining us on the news tonight. How does it feel to finally have General Babangida acknowledge your father's victory 32 years after the fact?
Well, thank you for having me. My family members, my friends at TVC, thank you for having me. I don't know if it feels any way. I always knew my father had won the elections. I think anybody who was alive during that time would have had that sense that the elections were won by late Chief MKO Abiola. And you have to also understand that it wasn't an Abiola win; it was a Nigerian win. So, those kinds of the election of 1993 was one that people could tell who won the elections. We had the famous A4 option, A4, something like this, where you had to just you lined up behind your candidate. So from just lining up, you knew who won the day. And I think my father also had that inkling that he won. And he always said, I won the election. And so I don't know if I feel any different than I did yesterday or 5, 10 years ago when I knew the same thing I know to be true today.
Though he says he regrets the action and would have acted differently if given another chance, he also stated clearly today that, quote, we acted in the supreme national interest, end quote. Do you have any specific questions you hope to get some answers to in this autobiography?
Well, there are a lot of questions that some of the revelations bring up. But, I've been a firm believer in not dwelling on the past, but forging a greater future for Nigerians. And I think that was what my father would have wanted. It's fine to say, yes, Abiola won the elections in 1983. But yeah, Abiola was the messenger. He had a message and he had a vision for a better Nigeria. He tried to share the vision across the country, and he expressed himself clearly. To let them believe that he stood for. So I think that for me, instead of trying to dig up old wounds, I think what we need to do is forge ahead. I think my father will be more pleased with a Nigeria that is, inclusive, and a Nigeria that actually approaches the citizens as partners. So I think what we need to do is try to get to that point where we start to listen to the message that he tried to get across.
So it was a big spectacle earlier today. The who is who when it comes to leadership in Nigeria gathered for that book launch. Is there any sense to which you agree that this acknowledgement will affect your family's legacy and the collective memory of Nigerians?
Uh, I think I'd have their position on on this, but for me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm more focused on trying to get to that finish line, that promised land that my father had envisioned. For you to tell me 32 years down the line that, he regrets the decision he made, that I think I take that to heart, and with like it's human to error. Nobody is perfect, and I think even my father would have said it the same way I'm saying it now. Where do we go from here? We know this to be true, but I can tell you that some of the issues that my father had raised in 1993 are still, prevalent now. And another thing is, our current president, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Abiola, he's somebody who was part of that struggle, so he understands more than most, what was lost. I think it's important that, we try as much as possible in terms of honoring Abiola and Kudirat, my mom Kudirat, who also lost her life during that time, and also millions of Nigerians who also lost limbs, finances. I know a friend of my father who lost all his companies, due to that, because he was supporting my father. So people lost a lot, and even not necessarily just like I lost both my parents, but there were other things that were also lost. And I think what is most important now, with this acknowledgement and his and the fact that he has said that he regrets it, I think what we should now try to do is we move forward. How do we move forward? Way that is included, that honors the during that time, in the belief, you talk about the sacrifice of life, but also so many people who believed in it so much that the trauma of not seeing that reality come to fruition, drove them away from the country. So we have lost so much in terms of human capital, wealth. I just think that it's time for us to turn a new page and say, let's put Nigeria first. And I think as Suadri and the Renewed Hope agenda that was once lost, and if we can all share into that, I think we might just all be better off for it.
Well, some have called it a significant step towards reconciliation and healing. In the coming days, the book will come under further scrutiny.